Hi everyone. So I'm here today to share these desert scenes that I made using MFT stamps, Saddle Up and Celebrate stamp set, and then the Whole Herd stamp set. The card that I'm going to share is the one on the left, the one that has the little cowboy and the cactuses, and it uses the Saddle Up and Celebrate stamp set by MFT stamps. And the reason I'm showing you this one and not the other is because I made the other one first and I didn't have the camera on. I was just kind of trying out a new technique, and then when I saw that I liked it, I thought I would come by and give it another try and share that card with you all. So the card that we're gonna make kind of like a country western desert scene, and I wanted to use a lot of oranges and yellows and browns and just give the sense of that there's, you know, a canyon behind them. They're in the middle of the desert. Maybe there's some dust blowing around, just lots of yellows and browns and orangey tones. And also I wanted it to be sunset. So we're also gonna have a little bit of a sun glow in the center of the scene. And the way I'm putting the scene together, you know, we're not aiming to show specific canyons or mountains or anything like that. We just want to give a hint that there is something going on in the background that kind of looks like a desert / country western scene. So I have the dip in the center, kind of to represent a canyon, and I also wanted to make sure that there was a nice glow in the center of the scene. So that helped as well. And so let's just get right into the coloring now that you kind of know what I was attempting to do with this scene. So for the sky, we're going to use lots of yellows, and Y21 and Y23 are the main colors that we're going to use here. And then also a little bit of YR24 for the edges. That's going to be our darkest color for the sky. And then I'm just blending that in with a Y23. And then I'll blend it further out with Y11. And this Y11, I'm just bringing it in to just help the glow kind of show up in the center. And then I'm going over it with Y21 just to kind of mute things down. And now I'm just darkening up the sky with some of the YR24. These are colors that I haven't used that much until recently. Normally when I'll use these colors, it's usually for food. These colors are great colors if you want to make the cheese on pizza, or if you want to make a taco shell, especially a crispy taco shell. So these yellows work for that. And now we're going to move on to drawing the kind of canyon that's in the middle of the scene. Maybe it's a canyon, maybe it's just a whole bunch of dust blowing around in the desert. But either way, it looks nice and deserty, whatever's going on in the back there. And for that portion, I just used E30 and then a little bit of E31 along the top. And then for the ground that they're standing on, I wanted that to be dark because it's in the foreground. So I'm going to use some darker E30s in this area, like E34, E35, and then even a little E37 by the end. We're going to put several layers on our background before we're done. Now I'm going back to work on the middle area. This is our little canyon, and I like the way that the colors play out here. I like that there's a nice dark brown on the bottom of the scene, that we have this kind of ghostly, dusty, light brown center of the scene, and then I just love the yellow gold sunset that we have in the back of the scene. So again, just working on my little background a little bit more, all blending out E30, E31, E33 in that middle section. And now we're going to start darkening up the fore scene with some E37. And I think this is the darkest we're going to go in this area. We're going to blend it out with E34 and then some E35. And then at the very end of the scene, we're going to go in and change the color a little bit more. But this is a good enough start for now. And if you do this on your own, you don't have to fuss as much as I did. I was fussing a lot just because I was kind of creating the scene in my mind as I went along. But once you know that you want a canyon in the middle, you can just kind of do the dip and use your E30, 31, and 34 and be done with it. You don't have to, kind of fuss around so much like I did. So now on the sides, I'm just going to add some E33 just to help the bottom of the scene blend better into the center of the scene. And now we're going to start coloring the little objects, and I just adore this little cowboy cake. This cake is one of the images in MFT's Saddle Up and Celebrate stamp set. And it's just adorable. So we're going to have a little white cow cake with some brown spots, or black spots, I guess. And I'm using neutral grays here, which might be a little bit of a surprise since I usually always use cool gray, and I tell everyone you don't need neutral gray. But in this case, for whatever reason, when I tried this on the first card with cool gray, it just looked a little bit too blue. I think it's because the cool gray, they're two cool colors, and it doesn't go well with this warm background. So the neutral grays worked better for my black tones in this, for this scene in particular. So for the little spots, we're just going to use N3, N5, and N7 for them. And this is really simple coloring. It's just focusing the darker shades around the edges of the little spots. And that's gonna give us like an illusion that the spots are kind of shiny and almost jumping off the page a little bit, and that they're dimensional. I just think it's so pretty how the spots look using this neutral gray against this warm background to the card. Now I thought that we needed a pop of color right in the center, so that's why we're going to make the little top of the cowboy cake's shirt with some reds, and I'm using R24, R29, and then R39, and focusing my darker colors along the edges, and the center is lighter. For the cowboy hat, we're going to use some traditional colors for this, so we're going to use our E40s for this cowboy hat, and we're going to start putting our shading in with E44, which is our mid-tone, and then we will darken it up as we go along. But I just wanted to kind of set out where I wanted the shading to go. And the shading is on the underneath of the hat. It's also by that little dip on the top, if you can see that. And then where the brim of the hat touches the base of the hat, we're going to have some shading there too. And I was just kind of taking my time working through this, starting with my mid-tone and then going back with my darker shades and then blending it out from dark to light. And I think I go over it maybe 2 times, and I was really happy with the result there because it gave it a really nice dimensional look by the time I'm done. And I think these E40 shades are they're absolutely perfect colors for a cowboy hat. But I am going to show you how to make another version when we color in the cowboy hats for the little cactus and the little boy. We're going to use some E70s on those hats, and I'll explain how they're different from the E40s when we get there. So now we also have these adorable little cow balloons, which is just brilliant. Whoever thought of this for the stamp set, it just has such a great fun sense of humor, I think. And these are a lot of fun to color too. So I'm just using that same method that I did for the cake with N3, N5, and then N7. And then we're going to lay down our base coat of the N3 and then color the outside edges of the spots with N7, and then blend that further out with the N5, and then finish up by blending everything together with N3. And then once we finish up with the balloons, we're going to start working on the little cacti in the left corner of the page. And before I get there, I'm just adding my little details to the string on the cowboy hat. So we're going to start with the little baby cactus, and we're going to give her a base of YG01, and then add some shading with YG17 and then blend that out with YG13. And then I wanted to brighten her up a little bit more, so that's why I went back in with a YG01. Then I wanted to darken the shadows more, so that's why I went back in with a YG67. And then I'm just trying to blend all of that out with YG13. For the daddy cactus, I guess it's a daddy cactus, we're going to give him a base of YG21. I wanted him to be a little bit duller than his little baby cactus because we can imagine that the little baby cactus is like a fresh, brand new cactus, and just like little babies, don't they have like their fresh, perfect skin, right? So that's what I was thinking. I was kind of thinking that if we were to make a little child next to an adult, we would give the child a brighter skin tone. So I did the same thing for our little cactuses here. So for the shading on the daddy cactus, we are gonna follow the same method that we did with the little baby cactus. We're gonna use YG67 for our shadow, YG13 for our midtone, and then the only difference is we have this base of YG21, just so that daddy looks a little bit duller than his daughter, just a little bit. And I'm just darkening up the shadows a little bit more. And even on the little baby cactus, I darken them as well. And then once we're done with the skin of the cactus, we'll move on to the little kerchief around, or handkerchief around the daddy cactus's neck. And we're going to use some violet tones for this. So I'm using V000, V01, V05, and then V09. I think the V09 was a little bit too dark and it didn't really match well. So I'm trying to blend it out with my V05 again, and the same with my V01. And I'm giving him a purple cactus just because I think purple complements the green nicely. And then I'm also going to give the little baby cactus a pretty bright pink bow. And I thought that I wanted my father-daughter pair to kind of match a little bit. So it looked like they coordinated their outfits before they went out. And I guess by the way that this card is designed, I guess it's the little baby cactus's birthday. That's what I assume is happening in this scene, and that the little cowboy is throwing a party for his favorite little pair of cactuses, and he's made this great cowboy cake, and then also I guess went down to the gift store and bought some of these mylar balloons with the little cow prints on them. So they're about to have like a really fun birthday party at sunset in the desert. Okay, so back to the scene. So for the little cowboy, I'm using some pretty common skin tones that I use quite often. E000 for the very center of the face, E00 for the base, and then E13 and E11 for the shadow tones. I'm giving him black hair just because I thought that the right side of the scene needed a little bit of black just to balance out with the rest of the card. I wanted to make sure that my proportions of black and white in the scene were kind of spread in a consistent or symmetrical manner, like across the scene. Otherwise it would look unbalanced. So we're going to give little cowboy a white shirt as well, just to help with the white balance in the scene. For the handkerchief around his neck, we're going to use some bright blues. So I'm using B21, B24, B26, and then we're going to even darken up the shadows with some B28. And I'm trying to put some of my shadow colors along the little folds that the artist drew into the stamp. If you kind of, sometimes if you don't know where shading goes or where folds on clothing goes, I'm still learning myself. I wouldn't really be able to put it in by myself if I didn't have a guide, but sometimes the stamps will give you a guide. So like this little MFT stamp for the cowboy, for the kerchief, if you look on the right and left sides of the kerchief, there are some little lines that can kind of help you to you know, color it in and give it the appearance of folds. And the way that you do that is you just follow the line with your darkest tone and then blend around it, and that will help to give the appearance of a fold. Although I'm still no expert in this area, I'm still learning. So I guess maybe watch some other YouTube videos on folds if you want to learn, because I'm still a little bit behind, so I think it's going to take me a little bit more time before I'm good enough at it that I can teach it. Okay, for his pants, I'm using some YG 90s, and I thought that this would be a nice complement. I also wanted to make sure that there was some green on both the left and right hand sides of the scene. And I guess he's wearing chaps. I guess that's what these are. So I'm just coloring them in with my YG markers, focusing my darker shades on the outer edges and around the little fold of the pant by his foot. And then also there's a little crease on the back of his knee that I also use the dark marker on. Okay, now I'm going to show you how to make another cowboy hat using some E70s. And these colors I don't use often at all. I'm not sure why, because they're kind of cool. They're like a brown, but they have a little bit of a purple shade to them. So it can give you like a real funky look. So I am coloring it the same exact way using the same method that we did for the first cowboy hat that we did in the scene, applying my shading color or my darkest colors to the underside of the hat, and then to the little dip in the hat on the top, and then to the part where the brim meets the base of the hat. And I'm using E70 for the highlight color in the center of the hat, and then E71 to color in the rest of the base of the hat. And then once I have that done, we're going to start using our E77 to start adding some shading and contour to the hat. And again, I'm focusing on the underside of the hat, on the part of the hat where the base meets the brim, and then also that little dip on the top. And then just kind of blending everything out with E71. That's kind of an odd choice there. I'm not sure if I made a mistake or if I intended to do that, but I would have thought that I would have gone from E77 to E74, which is the next shade. But I'm not, so let's I guess figure out the method to my madness as we finish this up. And I did just do this about an hour ago, so it's kind of surprising that I've already forgotten what I was doing. All right, so it looks like I didn't really use E74 on this one, that we just kind of have our dark shadow with E77, and then it goes right to the E71. For his little scarf, we're going to use E71 and E77 for the bottom portion, and then some yellow greens for the top portion. And these are the same yellow-green tones that his chaps are made of. For his blue jeans, I'm using the colors I always use for denim, which are R91, 93, 95, and 97. Not R, B, B91, B93, B95, and B97. It's just a nice kind of cool gray blue that I think is just perfect for denim. And there are also a lot of markers in the B90 series, so it's easier to blend than maybe some of the others. For a little pop of color, I also thought we would color the cuffs of his shirt blue, the same blue that his handkerchief is colored, and then I'm adding very, very light shading with the N1 to the sides of his white shirt. And now I'm just fixing up some parts of the sky where I thought that the color just needed a little bit more blending. And then we're gonna just work on our sky a little bit more. I'm just adding some more golden tones to the center. And then I just want a little bit more of a glow. So I'm going in with the Y00 and then a little YR 30 as well, which is almost like a white shade. It's like very, very pale, like a lemon chiffon, very, very pale. Okay, so now it's time to add some shadows underneath our little image's feet, and I'm using E47 and then E44 for these shadows. And I'm just going to keep blending them out until it looks pretty good for me and it looks like it's blended in nicely into the ground. And now this is the best part for me whenever I finish a card panel, is taking off the blue tape and then deciding which sentiment should go on the card and then stamping it out. So the sentiment we're using is, I spot someone who's having a birthday, which is perfect because our little cowboy is pointing, and we have this great birthday scene with the little daughter and daddy cacti duo, and then our little cow cake and our little cowboy. So now I'm going to put the whole thing onto an A2 size card base, and I'm putting the adhesive on the card base instead of the card panel because the ink is wet on the sentiment and I didn't want it to smear after all that hard work. So now we're going to add in some detail with a black glaze pen on the little eyes of the cacti and the little cowboy. And that's it. So that is our little country western / desert scene. Here's the other version that I had made that says happy birthday from the whole herd. I would love to hear from you in the comments as to what you think of these cards and whether or not you're going to give them a try. I know last week I was all about the beach. I was doing lots of beach scenes, and now we're kind of moved on to the desert. So I will see you again soon in the next video, and I hope everyone has a great weekend.